G'day, Ethan. You teach construction management, but I don't. So what I'm really curious about is what is the role of a construction manager relative to an architectural technologist, and also what's the training of the CM relative to an AT? Because I'm not sure.
Yeah, my class usually sit together with architectural technologists and the CM construction management and quantity surveying students all together. So it's a combined class. And in the class, what usually I teach is the roles and responsibility of stakeholders. So that means clients and the project managers are one of the stakeholders. So I teach them what is the role of project managers in NZS 3910, which is the traditional way of traditional construction contract, and NZS 3916 mainly, which is design and build contract. So because they are a little bit different, so construction project managers usually what we teach is under traditional contract, how the project managers works and how the project managers contractually responsible, or sometimes even though it is not contractually responsible, contract managers still need to work for his project to be function. So that's what I mainly teach about that. Okay, first thing I will start talking about traditional constructions contract, which we usually talk about 3910, which is very popular construction contract in New Zealand. 391. Yeah. So under 3910, project manager is directly contracted by the client during the it's at the but just before the construction stage. How the timeline was when for example, before talk about that, I think I need to talk. It's appropriate to talk about a little bit of timeline. So the client has visions, and he has a finance. He wants to start a project, so he approached the architect. The architect drew the design, and when the design's done, they call for tender. So that's part of design stage and tendering stage. So competitive tender happens, and the project managers, construction companies on board, and there will be a project manager. So the project managers roles under construction 3910, which is traditional contract, is mainly for the construction roles. So that means all the project managers, which I can also say constructions project managers, he will take care of all the construction works from there to the completions of the projects. So that's including all the safety, all the necessary, taking care of subcontractors, suppliers. So that's sort of like a default contract roles. However, you might notice that contract manager is construction company where project manager is leading is not contracted by the designer or the architects. Architects is meanwhile just now when we talk about that, the clients hire the architects. So because under the contract, the architect is endorsing or verifying the job. So clients, although there is no contractual relationship, because of the functional relationships, the client's manager or construction project managers will deal with the architect to get the endorsement, to get all the documents proper sign off, and to get the code compliance certificates and complete the projects. That's traditional. And another way of contracting is design and build, which is also quite popular in New Zealand. And standard construction of contract is called NZS 3916, constructions of contract for building and civil engineering design and construct, which that's according to New Zealand standards. So according to that, what happened is the clients hire contractors. The contractor is responsible for both design and constructions. So, for example, contractors may not be available there, may not have the design knowledge, So what happened is that the clients may hire a designer, which probably be architectural technologists or architect or the draftman, and they do the design. That's after the design, and also he has responsible for the construction. So after that, they will finish the projects. So that is very important for all three stream of my students: architectural technologies, uh, construction management, and the quantity surveying. So they will know how the dynamic of the stakeholders, how they work together, how to get the certifications, etc. So that is part of the teaching. And what we usually do in the class is I do some role play exercise, talk to each other. Okay, you are architectural technologists, you're hired by that. Okay, you will be project managers. How would you do? In this kind of scenario, how we will do it. So that's is part of the training, and this is how we train. So yeah, it's construction project managers has a lot of responsibility. For example, safety, site management, payment, claim, cash flow, etc. So it's hard to explain in a short videos because it's already a one course. But if I talk to you about only for 5 minutes summary, this is what it is.
So I'm a little confused. So
Yep.
under 3910, we've got the client creates a contract with the construction company.
The
Does the
clients will sign
CM
with the
work for
construction
the
manager.
so the construction manager is doing the job of the contractor? That is, he's totally responsible for constructing the building in accordance with the
Yes.
documents. So
Yes.
he doesn't. So when it comes time to certify payments, the CM, the construction manager in that case, is actually sending his claim through to the engineer to the contract, and the engineer to the contract is then certifying or creating the payment schedule, which then
Yes.
gets paid by the client. Okay, so
Yes.
and if we were looking at an AT and a CM, the AT is working on the side of the client, and the CM
Yes.
is working on the side of the construction company. That is,
Yes.
he's trying to make as much money as he can for the construction company, whereas the client's trying to pay as little as possible for the building. And so you've got this separation or this tension between the two of them. Now,
Yep.
at the moment,
Quite common.
yeah, it is common, but architects are normally trained to do this quasi-judicial role, being equal between the claims of the contractor and the desires of the client. We can't overpay the construction company or the CM, but we also can't underpay them because the client would like us to underpay them so he can hang on to his money as long as possible. But the construction company requires the cash flow in order to make sure that they can pay their workers and keep the project going. And as we know, that cash flow is the heart of construction. So we have to make sure cash flow continues. So I understand that a lot better now. So there is a separate engineer to the contract for that.
Mhm.
So I understand the design build because they're the construction company is responsible for everything, the design and the construction, and the client must, in that case, the client would want to be an experienced client. Otherwise, they're going to have someone with them to help certify the payments.
Yeah.
So the construction manager is the project manager.
Project manager.
Because you swapped and used both terms in one sentence,
Yes.
and I just wanted to get that
Sometimes we
clear.
call it construction project managers, or because he's
Okay.
representing the construction company.
So I noticed that under the new 3910 that came out this last year, 3910 2023, they've separated a role of the engineer to the contract. One is related to administration of the contract, and one is, I think, relative. So I'm a little confused because in the past there was one engineer to the contract, and if for example, let's say there was a claim for extension of time,
Yeah.
the contractor puts forward the extension of time claim, provides all the proof that it wasn't his fault that all this stuff happened, and the architect or the engineer of the contract would then look at that and then go, okay, I'm going to make a fair judgment between what the contractor wants and what the client needs. And in that case, they would tend to work fairly. But they've separated those two roles now. And I don't understand how that works now.
Yeah, because it's also hard for me because I don't see this things, put into the practice because it's relatively new. Even the project started, right? So it came out only 2023 November, so it's only 5-6 months into it. If the project started, I don't know how it will works. There are some speculations they will do this and they will do that. I don't know how many project is working doing contracting with 2023 versions, right? But we have been working for a different version of project constructions contract like JCT, which is very common, very common is in the UK.
Oh, that's a UK one, isn't it?
Yeah, JCT Joint Contract Tribunal, right? And also Singapore SIA. I work with SIA Singapore Institute of Architect contracts and public contracts. So these traditional contracts, usually the architect is the person. He has a power to certify everything. So contracts, maybe they call it like a superintendent officer supervising. There are different way of, but the power, the responsibility is he has to certify the work. Is it according to the specification? Is it according to the design? So architect will do that. But now it's changed. When it's changed, separate the power. So will it be a good thing or will it be a tensions? I don't know. But another thing is there are incidents that the architect abused the power as well, because there are not so many. They have the different opinions as well. So because sometimes the architects they abuse the power because they want to hide the design issues, and they say that okay, because for example, like when I was in Singapore, one of the projects, and it is let's say $140 million projects, and the architects issued no, it's 570 million dollar projects, and I need to build 3 buildings, and each building's architect issue 14 sheets of drawings. The contract sum is 570 million Singapore dollars. So that's Singapore dollar is more valuable than New Zealand dollars, which is 20% more than New Zealand dollars. That's over $600 million. So that means architect commission is quite high compared to that. But the architect works is each building they issued only 14 sheets of drawings.
That doesn't sound like a lot of drawings for an expensive building.
Yep, and what happened is that most of the time when we talk about certifying or design issues, they are not very objective, because they try to hide the shortage, and we had to come out with our design solutions and do it. So I think there are some abuse like that. Maybe this is the reason the New Zealand standards changed the way of walking, and the time will tell how it will work. And because everybody is this is the starting point, we will start seeing how the projects start working together collaboratively, or maybe more efficient, something like that. So we will see maybe next year, I think.
So it's going to take a while for this contract to flow through.
Yes.
We'll have to see. I think the NZIA conditions of contract for construction do put the architect at the centre of that in that quasi-judicial role, and they don't see any problem with working between the contractor and the client.
Yes, it's very common, and NZIA hasn't changed the way of working. So it's internationally because I study NZI, JTC, SIA, and other public form of contract in Singapore, NEC, etc. Because, for example, whether be it an architect or be it an engineers, these people's mostly, I would say, designers, right? Architect is a designer, engineers are designer, they are they certify the contract, they certify the works, and after that,
Hmm.
based on their recommendations, the clients pay the money.
Hmm.
Right. That's how is it done. So now when it is changing, well, the, we time will tell. I don't really know which is better or which is worse. I have no idea because previously, as I mentioned, there are abusive designers there, right? And they try to hide their own thing, so that's not very fair to the project managers, which is representing the construction company, right? So that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think that separating the roles gets around the problem that you've just explained, because you could have two people that still do what you're asking, what you're suggesting. So you're in a no better position. And but don't forget that even under 3910, the previous one, that the contractor can actually point out the fault of the architect to the owner and get the engineer to the contract replaced. So they still had some power to do that. And they
Yeah.
also, don't forget, under the CCA, the Construction Contracts Act, they can still dispute the payment claims. They can still
Yes.
they can still dispute all that stuff. So yeah, I, I think maybe the separation of roles was a solution looking for a problem.
Yeah, it could be as well because sometimes when you separate it, another person is architect's friend.
And as I said, you've still got all these other things that you can do. The contractor can still dispute it. They can still,
Yeah.
they can go to the
Yeah.
client. They can still register their complaint. So there's still all this, the contractor still has a lot of options that they can do. Of
Yeah.
course, we have to try and teach our students, because I teach the AT, so I have to teach the contract from a different point of view than you do for construction management.
Hmm.
But it's still, and your construction management students are often in the industry anyway, and mine are not. So I have
Hmm.
to try and get my students to understand. But it can only be for when we teach our students, we can really only teach them to just scratch the surface of that contract, because when
Yeah.
our students leave, the chances of them observing or administering a contract or helping out on a contract are quite small, considering all the skill that they have to develop. So it's probably not going to be for 3 or 4 years before they get to a role with their
Yeah.
experience to be able to start looking at the contract. And by then, my guess is they're going to forget everything I've said to them.
Probably.
The way I look at it is, we're not going to make them an expert in contracts, but we have to get them to understand what the roles are, and the fact that if they are doing a full service contract, then they will have to be looking at, or being aware that their employer might be doing that kind of work, and they're there to help. So that's about all that we can, I think, do, is give them some understanding, particularly when they get to the and work in the office, and their employer says, "Oh, I've got to issue the practical completion certificate." At least
Hmm.
our students will know, because we've covered that, what that thing is.
Yeah. Yeah. And also they need to understand the procurement models, which so that who's their boss is. But anyway, traditional or yeah, there's a big difference because traditional will be hired by the clients, and the design build the designer will be hired by the uh, uh, contractors.
Oh goodness, don't get into novation. I don't want to talk about that at all.
Yeah, we don't talk
Um,
about that because it's very complicated for the listener.
yes, and it's very complicated for the poor architect that gets. I think we should stop this conversation now. Thank you very much,
Yeah,
Ethan.
it's
You've
quite
really
deep.
explained
All
it to
right.
me. I was yeah. You've really helped me understand it. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you. Bye. See you next week.
See you.